Okay, so let's continue on with the Origin and Diversity of Life set of lectures here. In the previous lectures, we were talking about possible explanations, hypothesis for how life originated on Earth, how we date those fossils and that evidence using relative dating and absolute dating, and then the time periods or the time frames when the Earth originated and the earliest life and what form it was in, then the eukaryotic life, and when that originated, and how the geological history of the Earth has been broken up into these four major eras that we're going to focus on. So last lecture we were talking about Precambrian era and looking at key events that occurred during Precambrian. We also talked about the Paleozoic and key events that occurred during Paleozoic. And big thing to keep in mind or remember are those two mass extinctions of the Paleozoic. Again, each mass extinction plays a significant role in causing or allowing diversity to appear. So as the Paleozoic dwindled or kind of ended, we then move into the next era, which is the Mesozoic era. So life has diversified in the oceans. We have different varieties and diversity of plant life, animal life, all major kingdoms are represented in the oceans. And life's also made its way onto land. We get plants evolving into land-based existence during Paleozoic. And the animals. The animal diversity on land was insect diversity and primarily amphibian diversity. As we move into the Mesozoic, we start to see that diversity evolving very rapidly and diversifying significantly. Key thing to remember about Mesozoic, 3 mass extinctions. We see 3 of them during the Mesozoic era, and each extinction leads to a new diversity. So I'll have a graph about these extinctions towards the end of this lecture or in the next one, but those extinctions are important things to remember. Lots of species disappear. The ones that survive tend to diversify pretty rapidly, go through that punctuated equilibrium, and produce new diversity. All right, so key things in Mesozoic. Amphibians decline and diversify into reptiles. So going from an amphibian to a reptile, not a major change here. Body structure changes a little bit. Skin dries out, becomes more scale-like, so you don't need to be in the water all the time. Lungs expand, legs become a little more stable, chest cavity broadens a bit. Those are some innovations that allowed amphibians to diversify into the reptiles. One of the big key differences that also enabled reptiles to take advantage of land-based environments more than amphibians, because amphibians are still tied to the aquatic world. They have to have it for reproduction and also respiration. Their skin needs to be moist for them to breathe more efficiently. Amphibians can't, so they can't leave water permanently. Reptiles can't. That's why we see snakes in deserts, but never an amphibian. Well, I should say never. Amphibians are there as long as they're in moist environments. But the egg is the huge difference. Reptile eggs are laid in shells. They're encased in what's called an amniotic membrane. That's a huge innovation, a huge feature. Amphibian eggs have to be moist and wet all the time, just like fish eggs. But reptile eggs, bird eggs, mammal eggs, etc., don't need that moisture. So that was another major innovation that enabled reptiles to diversify and basically become a dominant group on land during the Mesozoic. Now, while animals are diversifying, plants are doing the same thing. This group called the cycads, cone-bearing trees, they appear on land back during the Mesozoic. Big, gigantic trees. These are not the same as what we see on Earth today. Most of our forests are not cone-bearing trees. We do have pine trees, which are relatives of the cycads. But these guys show up and start basically setting the stage for forests, a different type of forest during the Mesozoic era. Dinosaurs. This is your age of dinosaurs. Dinosaurs appear and diversify dramatically during the Mesozoic. So those of you Jurassic Park fans, think about that movie. That's set during the Jurassic period, hence Jurassic Park, and that is during the Mesozoic. So there's a lot of symbolism there with that movie, the dinosaurs they have in it, and when they were present on Earth, what time period of the Earth's history. So we see lots of diversity of dinosaurs showing up during the Mesozoic. Dinosaurs come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and colors and weights and environmental roles. There were the big T-Rexes and the carnivorous dinosaurs that were predators, that were omnivores, or dinosaurs that were herbivores. Dinosaurs filled every ecological niche during the Mesozoic. Ironically, T-Rex was not a big top-level predator. They're scavengers. The initial thoughts, hey, these guys got to be big, scary predators. Look at that head. Look at those teeth. They're just crazy scary. But you look at them. They can't run real fast. They're too big. They got these gigantic bodies. They're not going to be a fast animal. Predators usually are fast. They can't hide. They're too big. You can't see a T-Rex crouching behind a bush, springing out like a cheetah or jumping out like a jaguar towards a prey animal. It's too big to hide. They can't grab things and tackle them and hold on to them because, fortunately, those front legs, frankly, they're kind of sissy-like. Look at them. I mean, they can't really do a whole lot. Their main thing was they could smell. You look at the size of that head. You look at the size of the nasal cavity. They could smell rotting, dead, decaying carcasses from miles away. They could walk through the forest or walk down the beach or walk to wherever, smelling their food, finding it, and then they would scare off anything that was scavenging the food. But T-Rexes were scavengers. Okay, their nose or nasal cavity to eye socket ratio is comparable to that of a turkey vulture. Those are those big birds we see circling overhead whenever there's something dead on the side of the road. So all this diversity of dinosaurs was happening during the Mesozoic. If you ever have the opportunity, I highly encourage you guys, go to the Field Museum in Chicago, drive up, even if it's just for a day, visit their dinosaur exhibit, some amazing stuff there. They actually have Sue, who was the most complete T-Rex skeleton ever found. They have her there. You can stand next to her skull and just get an appreciation for how big these animals were and what they looked like and what they did, what was their ecological role. But those all date back to the Mesozoic time period in the Earth's history. Okay, so in the ocean, we get lots of mollusks diversifying. We see these different types of chambered nautilus, octopus, squids, clams, oysters, etc., snails. All that's going on in the oceans. And corals start establishing and building coral reefs. So the coral reefs of today that we're unfortunately destroying date back to the Mesozoic era. It took millions, hundreds of millions of years to establish these reefs, and we're destroying them in a matter of decades. So it's a huge ecological issue that we tackle more in Biology 112. But all this happened during the Mesozoic. Massive amount of diversification, but keep in mind those three mass extinctions. Now, the third mass extinction of the Mesozoic came at the end of the Mesozoic. Just prior to it, flowering plants started to show up. So plants that could produce flowers, and flowers attract pollinators. Mutualism develops. Pollinators spread your pollen easier than wind and water, increasing success and diversity. We also see these mammal-like things showing up towards the very end of that Mesozoic. Small, almost look like a little shrew or a little mouse-like creature. Not much when you compare them against a T-Rex or these other dinosaurs. And as luck would have it, that fifth mass extinction happened, that fifth yellow one here, at the very end of the Mesozoic, and that wiped out a lot of those dinosaurs and gave mammals their chance to evolve, go through adaptive radiation, and diversify. The sixth star-like thing here in red, that is not a mass extinction. This is the current extinction we're in right now. And if this continues at the pace it's on, we will be in a mass extinction in the foreseeable future. Okay, so the fifth one was a natural extinction called a Cretaceous calamity. Happened about 65 million years ago. Big giant meteor slams into the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, throws up bedrock and dust and debris and massive amounts of stuff into the atmosphere, changes global climate for decades. Big giant herbivores start to die because their food source is gone. As herbivores die, predatory dinosaurs, carnivores and omnivores, they start to die. All these big animals, which most of the dinosaurs and reptiles were big animals, they die. What's left? Your little furry scavengers, your little shrew-like things, your little mammals that can maintain internal body heat, that don't need a lot of food because they're small. So there's an advantage of being small during an extinction compared to being this big giant creature. So we see mammals getting their opportunity to take over as we move into the Cenozoic era. So about 65 million years ago to where we're at today, Cenozoic era. Those flowering plants, they explode with diversity. They become the dominating plant group, and they start evolving into the rainforests we have on Earth today. So 60 plus million years of plant evolution gives us this diversity we see on Earth today. Mammals basically take over everything the dinosaurs used to do. Big herbivore mammals, big marine mammals, predatory mammals, carnivores, omnivores, herbivores, etc. Mammals diversify because adaptive radiation. Hey, there's not as much competition. We have all these ecological niches that are not being filled. That allows for diversification. So mammals take over during the Cenozoic and continue to diversify throughout the Cenozoic. Monkeys adapt to life in the trees or evolve into tree-based life early on, roughly about 60 million years ago. 58 million years ago is when monkeys start showing up in the fossil record. We then see climates changing, grasslands appearing, becoming more dominant, less tropical rainforests, and at the same time, roughly, apes are starting to appear. So monkey to an ape, not a huge evolutionary leap, more advantageous to be an ape in a grassland than a monkey. Apes are semi-upright walkers, called knuckle walkers. They can see above grass and watch for danger, carry their young, etc., whereas monkeys, four-legged animals, not as adaptable in those grasslands. So we see this change in primates, as well as other species, during the Cenozoic. And somewhere between 6 to 10 million years ago, the apes diverge. The ape ancestral line diverges, and we get a branch going towards what we call hominids. It's estimated 6 to 10 million years ago. So we got hominids showing up. These are not you and I, 6 to 10 million years ago. These are ancestors of ours. The big key feature here is the hominids are different than the apes because they walk on two legs. They are upright bipedal walkers. So when you walk upright on two legs, you're bipedal. They are the bipedal primate group, the hominids. Human beings are just one type of hominid. There's a whole bunch of them out there, and we'll talk more about that in the human evolution lecture, which will be in the next set of information. But hominids make their appearance on Earth 6 to 10 million years ago. We continue to evolve, and we're sitting here today listening to these lectures, watching this, taking courses, because our early ancestors showed up 6 to 10 million years ago. Apes went through a similar type of evolution. They just went down a different path. They went down 6 to 10 million years of evolution themselves, and that's why we have bonobos and gorillas and other chimpanzees, other types of apes on Earth today, because they went down a different evolutionary path. So what we'll look at in the next lecture is a series of things that really haven't changed, a group of organisms called living fossils.